Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I'm bringing you guys an update to my Ishizu Tearlament deck profile. So this has been just a really cool deck to play. I gotta be honest, I know that a lot of people right now are probably also contemplating hitting that unsubscribe button because a lot of people aren't happy with the Tier 0 format, but honestly this deck is actually pretty cool. If you are playing in a mirror match, especially, this deck is actually pretty darn fun to play with. It's a lot like a chess match. You're just kind of each trying to trade each other's blows and then trying to get to like a simplified game state and whatnot till basically you figure out who's going to be the victor. But yeah, overall this deck is pretty darn good. I do have a lot of my own stuff in this deck that kind of like changes up my build compared to a lot of other people. I really like how this build plays, so I think that if you guys have seen a lot of other deck profiles, I think that this one is going to be a little bit different. But anyways, let's get into it. But also, please subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I would really appreciate it, and let's get on into it. So, for the main deck, we are playing 2 copies of Tearlament's Rhino Heart. Obviously, you got to be playing 2 or 3 of this card. A lot of people just like playing it at 2, especially if this is like in your opening hand. Sometimes this card just doesn't feel that great because your graveyard isn't set up yet. So just being able to add this card later and then like normal summoning it if you haven't used up your normal summon, and then just dumping that one name that you really need, or if you get it milled and then you get to special summon it back, it feels really good. 3 copies of Merly. This is another card you can kind of tease around with playing 2 of, because generally you're going to be searching it off your Kitkalos, and then you're going to be summoning it to the field and sending your Kitkalos and doing the infamous 8-card mill. So really good there, but I'm pretty happy with the ratios. So then 3 Sheeran, and then 3 copies of Havness. Obviously, those 2 are just super duper standard. Then getting into the Ishizu cards, I'm not going to explain the cards too much because I feel like everyone kind of knows what they do. But then we are playing 3 copies of Keldo. Keldo is also just super duper important. Being able to trade blows with your opponent, like I said. If your opponent is playing Ishizu tier, you guys are basically just trying to sort of mind game each other on when you do the Mudora and the Keldo hits. And then we are going to be moving on to 3 copies of Kelbeck. Kelbeck is also just a necessity for the deck, and just kind of like a nice little hand trap sometimes, but mainly you want to get that 5-card mill. It is also just super duper good. And then 1 copy of YGO. Some people are also teasing around with the fact of playing 2 or 3 of the YGO. I think eventually in the future, maybe 3 YGO will be a thing, especially if they hit some of the non-tier, or if they do hit the tier cards in the future on the ban list. But then going on into the Bestial stuff, it took me a long time to hop on the Bestial train. I feel like there are a handful of people out there who just don't like the Bestials, because if you do mill them, they just do nothing. But overall, these cards are just still really powerful. You just can't deny, and like if you are playing a Tearlament matchup and your opponent does have Bestials but you don't, it just feels really bad, and you're probably not going to end up winning because they're going to be able to sort of mitigate all of like your graveyard for you. Then we're going on into 2 copies of Druis Worm. You could bump this up to 3, but I wanted to play a really solid 40-card deck. That way I could get to my really broken cards like the Field Spell and Instant Fusion as quickly and as consistently as possible. The other day I was at a trophy tournament and I ended up seeing Instant Fusion like 2 matches in a row, like 2 games apiece. It was just insane. It felt really good. And then 1 copy of Bestial Sorneer. So yeah, like I said, trying to keep in the consistency. You could also just play 3 Druis Worm here and skip the Sorneer. It never really came up too much over the last couple weeks since I put the Bestials in to like, oh, like I want to search for another Bestial, but I've already used Druis Worm, so I need to search for Sorneer. I don't know. It just doesn't come up enough. So maybe I'll end up switching that. But then 1 copy of Diviner as like our extra level 6. This card being a 6 matters so much in the deck, and it's just really solid. Then we're going on into 3 copies of the Field Spell. Don't really need much explanation there, but Field Spell, really amazing for the deck. 2 copies of Scream. You got to be playing 2 Scream. That is the proper ratio. I don't care what you say, you got to be playing 2. 3 is maybe a little too much, but 2 obviously feels really good. And then 1 copy of Heartbeat. This is kind of like a pseudo way to get around Fluanderies and stuff, because if they are playing, they got the Field Spell and they got the trap card that lets them summon on your turn. So if you have Heartbeat, it at least lets you to force out the trap card early in the turn, or like I said, you can just turn off the Field Spell and stuff. So Heartbeat Heartbeat does feel kind of good. I do like it in the deck because it does get you extra hand advantage, and this deck just needs hand advantage. That's actually why the Bestials, in my opinion, are played, is just for the recurring hand advantage and getting a little bit of like field advantage, so you can link stuff away or make XZs or make your synchro play for Baron de Fleur. But yeah, overall, like, or I guess you don't use Baron de Fleur for those, but extra bodies is the main point. But overall, hand advantage is a really big thing. So this card just hitting the graveyard and getting you a trap back is really, really powerful in my opinion. So that's what I sort of tried to focus on, because in my early days of playing this deck, I had too many games where I would get like get cards on the field that needed me to discard or have a card in hand, like Rhino Heart. Says that you have to pitch a card from your hand to the graveyard when you summon him, but I would always not have a tier card in my hand, so like being able to add the traps back just feels really, really good in my opinion. Then we have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. I feel like 2 is the right ratio for this deck. You're basically always going to be able to get this off, because if your opponent is playing a competent deck that has graveyard effects, they're going to try to use them when your stuff hits the graveyard, and then you just get extra advantage off with the Triple Tactics. 1 copy of Instant Fusion, and then 1 copy of Terraforming to search for our field spell, and then lastly 1 Crime and 1 Sullic. Overall, I don't think that you need to change these ratios too much. Some people play 2 Crime or 2 Sullic. I like playing 1 of each, especially having 1 Crime in the main deck. Is really good if your opponent ends up getting stuff that is going to banish your stuff from the graveyard. It just feels really good to have that in your arsenal. Getting on into the extra, we're playing 1 copy of Kit. This card is just insane for the deck. It's so good being able to get a mill 5 straight out of the extra deck. 1 copy of Rukalos, and then 1 copy of Rhino Heart. Each of these is just good at 1, I think. If you're playing 2 Kit Kalos, you really don't need to, because you have the Crime to be able to just get that thing back from the graveyard or from the banish pile if your opponent does banish it. I just think that it's nice playing the 1 copy of Mud Dragon, 1 copy of the Garura, 1 copy of Dracostapelia. For the longest time before I was playing the Bestials and stuff, I was considering dropping the Mud Dragon, but then actually having Mud Dragon makes it so that it's like way more viable if you have the Bestials, because then the Bestials are going to be darks, and then they can in tandem go with your darks to make Mud Dragon, and then Mud Dragon just goes into more of your rank 4 plays or link plays, or to go into your Baron de Fleur. So we are playing the 1 Baron de Fleur. This is the 1 flex spot that I have, so I was considering some other things, but in the main deck I really couldn't fit the Grapha, so I am just going to go over a couple other things that I skipped in the deck. So I put in the Baron de Fleur. You could also put in Grapha, and then also put in like Polly and the King of the Swamp. I was playing this engine for a long time and it worked really well, but again, it's all about hand advantage, and sometimes you just don't have that 1 card in your hand to discard. Herald of the Orange Light really destroys your hand advantage, and when I added in the Bestials, I had to get rid of the Herald of the Orange Light because of the fact that now I had 3 different like typings and engines. I had fairies, I had dragons, or are they dragons or are they worms? I'm just so stupid. The dragons, okay, just had to double check. But yeah, so we got that, and then we have all of our aquas and our warrior with Rhino Heart, Time Thief Redoer, and Divine Arsenal AA Zeus did not make it in the package, and then also Starving Venom and Super Poly. Again, hand advantage. Super Poly is really good for field advantage, but hand advantage not so much, and you can't really have Super Poly and Bestials. There's just not enough space in the deck literally right now, but once we get like a ban list and then like the deck gets a little slimmer, then maybe we'll have room. But anyways, getting back into the extra deck. I've never done that before, just like cutting off the extra deck, but I wanted to explain my decisions there. But we have 1 copy of Baguska, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, and then 1 copy of Beatrice. So Beatrice is insane for the deck, especially when you get into the side deck where we have all of our fun side deck plays, which we will do a side deck here. But like I said, I cut out the Time Thief and the Zeus basically for the fact that you have Abyss Dweller is here for if you're playing up against a mirror match. You have Baguska if you get hand trapped and stuff, or you just have a bricky hand and that's all you can put up. You just put up Baguska and you might be able to make it through a turn. And then you have Beatrice to be able to dump specific cards into the graveyard. Time Thief Redoer doesn't exactly have a purpose, and then Double A Zeus does have a purpose, but he is actually replaced by a different card. So let's keep moving on, though. We have one copy of Sprite Elf for obvious reasons, one copy of Dark, and then here's where my extra deck gets a little bit different. One copy of IP Masquerena, one copy of Appaloosa, and then one copy of Underworld Goddess, which did replace the Zeus. This replaced Zeus after I did 2 trophy tournaments in a row this last weekend, and I took Zeus out, or I put Zeus in and took out Underworld Goddess, and then I basically came up against a bunch of matchups where I had unbeatable boss monsters that I had to go up against. I ended up going up against Red Eyes Dark Dragoon Turbo, and basically had to go into like 2 XZ monsters, crash one of them into Dragoon, and then with that, then like I had to go main phase 2 with the other XZ monster and go into Zeus and then send everything. Just felt really bad to have to do all of that stuff where I could have just gone Underworld Goddess. But basically these cards with IP Masquerena just works fantastically. You just basically go into IP Masquerena at the end of your turn with your Sprite Elf, and then maybe one other monster on board or a Bestial in hand, and then basically Sprite Elf brings back your Diviner or your Merly. You get more stuff onto the field, and then you use IP Masquerena's effect, go into Appaloosa, or if your opponent is going into a big unbeatable boss monster, you just link it away with and go into Underworld Goddess, either on their turn or go into Underworld Goddess on your next turn. It just feels really good. This package is super solid. Like I said, this is way different than what other people do, but I think that it works really, really well. More like it's easier to go into these cards than like Time Thief Redoer sometimes, and that's just why I've started doing that. But for a quick little side deck lesson, this is just sort of what I am doing in the side. So basically the side deck is just anti-Fluunderies. So I am playing 3 copies of Imperm just to be able to get over like the barrier statue and stuff like that. 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More just to be able to, again, break boards. It is just insane. Then 3 copies of Lightning Storm just to be able to blow up fields. Again, then we have Dark Hole. Like basically all of those 12 cards right there are the Fluunderies matchup, as well as like Dark Hole is just really good for your own deck, be able to blow up your own stuff on board and then get their graveyard effects off. Then the Spice for my side deck is the Gravekeeper's Trap and the Exchange of the Spirit. These 2 cards work phenomenally in the mirror match. A lot of the time, I just feel like when I'm in the mirror match, like if my opponent is just a slightly more skilled player, or if they just have a better hand, then they are just going to kick my butt. But if you end up getting lucky and get the Gravekeeper's Trap set up, all you need is to open up with Mudora in your hand, or you use like Keldo to get into Mudora, and then you're able to get off the Gravekeeper's Trap onto your field, and then you just have to get Exchange of the Spirit into the graveyard, which you can use your Beatrice to be able to force the Exchange of the Spirit into the graveyard. So that was the last reason why I decided to go in with the Bestials, because then I can go more consistently into Beatrice and Exchange of the Spirit into the graveyard, and then like my opponent's entire board is just shut off because they can't, like they're basically under Abyss Dweller when you have Gravekeeper's Trap, and it helps you to get even more advantage over time. So that's why it's just too good to not have in the side. And then 1 copy of Volcanic Scattershot, obviously. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for my pretty in-depth deck profile for Tearlaments. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. This has been, like I said, pretty fun deck to play around with. I'm really excited, though, for Konami to shake things up with the next ban list. That way we can get a little bit more diversity, because I know that people at my locals are tired of me playing this. But anyways, guys, thanks again so much for watching. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel if you guys haven't already. I would really appreciate it. And we will see you guys for the next profile. Peace.